Hey man, today on the show, I have a story for you. Now, I've come to really love stories because in each story, there is embedded some lessons, metaphors, something to learn, something to apply to one's life. And this story is no different. And so today, I wanted to share this story with you because it was shared with me. It has inspired me, and I have been retelling it ever since I had learned it. Now, this story was shared to me from Dr. Andrew Dobo, who during our EMDR training had shared this story, and it made a pretty big impact on me and my life. And I have shared this story, and it has made a positive impact in the lives of other people. Not necessarily a happy story, but in it, we can find some strength, some courage to make some positive changes in our lives. So I'm not going to necessarily share with you exactly what the story is because it's unique to you and the stage of your life today, the stage of your development or choices or decisions that you have to make. A special thanks to Dr. Andrew Dobo for sharing this story with me. A special thanks to Dr. Milton Erikson and Micheal Meade, who have expressed and exemplified the power of storytelling. Also, a special thanks to my friend and co host, Brett Hall, who has inspired me to make difficult and hard decisions in my life. Thank you to all of them. And without further ado, here is the story. This is called The Lizard in the Fire. Once upon a time. All great stories start with that, don't they? Once upon a time. But what does that really mean? Well, that was when time was felt and experienced, but not measured. It was a time before we captured it and threw it on our wrists and put it up on clocks on high steeples, before churches rang bells to signify the hour, before we measured our day by the hour and in segments of time. It was when time was just felt by the sun, by the moon, by the changing of seasons. Time was just experienced. And this was this time for this young boy in this village. Now, this story originated somewhere in Africa. I think it was told maybe by the Lupe people, but like all great stories, as they get passed down from generation to generation, as they get spread far and wide, different elements are changed, but the concepts remain the same. So, once upon a time, there was a boy, and it became his time. The time in one's life where they transition from childhood into adulthood. And so, in this small little village, this boy needed to go out into the wilderness to become independent, to learn how to survive, to become his own man. And so, customarily, prominent people of the village got together and they shared with the young boy different skills that he could utilize while he was out there in the wilderness, learning how to survive, learning how to become a man himself. They shared with him how to make tools, how to scavenge for food, how to hunt, how to build a shelter, how to find water, how to survive the elements of the wilderness, how to protect himself. And so, as they shared with him all their secrets, all the things that they had learned, so that he could take out and be successful while he was trying to become independent, the last one was his father. And like any good father, parents need to protect, need to provide rules and boundaries, and need to share with their children the potential dangers that are out there in the world. And so, after his father shared with him the skills that he could use out there in the wilderness, he said, "There is one thing that I want you to be wary of." And that one thing is that if you should come across a maiden, do not lie down with her. Do not spend the night. For if you do, you will die. And so the son took this information in. He kept it in his mind. He kept the skills that he had learned in his mind, and he went out into the wilderness to put it to use. And of course, while he was out there, he started to see and learn from some of his mistakes as far as building tools and building shelters and finding food or not finding food, learning how to survive in the elements day and night. And for many days he was out there, he started to learn how to use these techniques, how to adopt them, and how to find his own special way, to find the skills that he had innately and to apply what he had learned. And he felt good about this until one day he came across, as you can imagine, a maiden. And they sat down and they began talking. They began talking about their little villages and how they were actually close but had never met before. They talked about their lives and how they learned from people in the village, elders, and the village sage, and how they had become better people for being part of this community. And they enjoyed spending the time together. But before long, the sun started to set and it became night. And of course, the young boy shared with this maiden, "My father did tell me that I can't lie down with you. I cannot spend the night because I would surely die." And as he was expressing that, there was a slight doubt in his mind. Did what his father share with him, was that true? Was that a danger? It doesn't seem like that would be the thing. It doesn't sound like just by sleeping next to a maiden that I would die. And so, with that shred of doubt, and with the new courage he had found from being out on his own, he decided to go against what his father said. Even when the maiden said, "You know what? If that's going to happen, I don't want to be here with you. I'll go back to my little village." But he said, "I've enjoyed this time together and it's dark and I don't want you facing the elements by yourself. Let's just spend the night right here by this nice tree and we'll walk back to your village in the morning." And so they did. They lied down together. They spent the night together. And of course, at some point during the evening, the boy did die. And so the maiden wakes up to find the boy dead. Frantic, she runs back to where he had expressed his village was, and she gathered the people of the village, and she said what had happened. And so they gathered together and they went out to retrieve the boy's body to bring it back to the village. And of course, the mother and father came to view the young boy's dead body, lifeless. And they were absolutely distraught, so distraught that they would do anything to bring their son back into existence. So they went to the sage of the village, the old hunter, the old medicine man, the old wisdom seeker, because he would surely have the answer. He would surely be able to bring this boy back to life. The mom and dad were desperate. The maiden was desperate. She had thought that this was not a good idea. She had urged him to reconsider, but he went against his father's wishes. He went against what dangers may have befallen. He took the risk and he gave his life for that risk. And so the mother and the father met with the village elder, the sage, the medicine man, the shaman, whatever you want to call it. And they talked with him, and he said, "This is not a problem. All we need to do is to build a large fire right in the center of the town, a fire so high that the flames reach the heavens, and we need to get a lizard." And so the townspeople got together, gathering wood and logs and kindling, and they built this ginormous fire and they lit it. And as it got hotter and burned brighter, and as the flames reached the heavens, the sage came with the lizard that they found out in the forest. And he commanded that he was going to throw the lizard into the fire. And if somebody could retrieve the lizard, then the boy would come back to life. So he threw the lizard into the fire, and the lizard ran and scurried about. And of course, the mother The first one, who did not want her son to stay dead, jumped into the fire and it got hot and it started to burn her flesh. And she got scared and she couldn't grab the lizard as the lizard was too fast for her. And she jumped out of the fire. She was unsuccessful. The father tried the same thing. And of course, he was too big and the fire started to burn him and he couldn't retrieve the fast moving lizard. But the maiden, she was smaller, more agile, younger. And she jumped into the fire and she grabbed the lizard and she came out and the lizard was still alive. The maiden was still alive. And suddenly, magically, the boy came back to life. What a wonderful story. But sadly, this is not where our story ends. And so the maiden gave the lizard back to the elder, and the elder said, "Now we have a difficult decision to make." And he brought the lizard to the young boy, who was now back to life. He handed the lizard to the young boy, and he said, "You have a difficult task ahead of you. If the lizard should die, then your mother dies. But if the lizard lives, your mother will live, but the maiden will die." And so this is where I leave you with the story. What would you do? Set the lizard free and allow the maiden to die, or kill the lizard, causing your mother to die, but the maiden to live? Not an easy choice. A potential lose-lose either way. And so this is where we find ourselves in our lives, having to make a difficult decision. This is the story of every young person who transitions into adulthood. They have to leave behind the comforts of their home, the stability, and venture out into the world where there are inherent risks and possibly death. This is a representation of the soul's journey, and I don't want to deprive you of your own journey. At times in your life, you have faced this exact challenge. Do I stick to the comforts of what I've always known, or do I venture out? Do I kill that part of my psyche? Do I kill that part of my programming? Do I go against what I have learned to learn something new, to potentially find greatness, to potentially find love, to potentially level up? Or do I stay in this same place? There are times when we feel stuck in our lives, times when we don't want to risk it all, where we don't want to shed our skin, where we don't want to go through a transformation. And if nothing changes, well, nothing changes. There isn't a more correct choice in this story. And when you find yourself holding that lizard, it could be a grand life change, a grand decision that you have to make, or it could be some small decision. And it's okay to stick with comfort and stability at times, but remind yourself that we don't grow, we don't improve, we don't level up unless we take the risk, unless we kill the lizard. So I want you to process this story, take it in, see how it could be impactful in your life, see how you could potentially make positive changes in your life. Maybe you will risk it. Maybe you will face adversity and challenge. And through that, you might experience true growth, strength, courage, and you can become better. Or maybe you'll choose comfort and security, and that's okay too. So thank you for allowing me to share this story with you. Although it was short, when you think about it, it can become very profound. Different elements of the story represent different parts of us, different parts of our emotional state, different parts of our psyche, different archetypes out there in the world. So thank you for letting me share this with you today. If you have any comments about this story or any questions for us, please send them to questions@therapyunzipped.com. Stories can be so profound in our lives. So thank you for letting me pass on this story from generations ago, and I hope that it will continue. What will you decide? Thank you.